Speaker. Il y aura 2 minutes pour la députée de...
The member for Ottawa South will have 2 minutes remaining when debate resumes on this motion, and also 5 minutes for questions and answers. Member statements. The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, in Quebec, we've been fighting against strike breakers for 40 years. Quebec workers under federal jurisdiction don't benefit from that because Ottawa is still stuck in the 19th century. Once again, today, the Canada Lands Corporation, established in Toronto, is replacing workers from the old Port of Montreal with scabs. That's unacceptable, Mr. Speaker. My honourable member from Bécancour-Nicolet-Sorel has been working to solve this since 1987. He made it the subject of his first private member's bill, and today he is the dean of this chamber. Ottawa lacks as much political will to protect people who are earning an honest living as they do to put an end to tax evasion by the wealthiest. Once again, the government voted against workers and for strike breakers. Justin Trudeau, the federal government...
Mr. Speaker, a hearty welcome back to you and all my colleagues. This past summer was a busy one in the beautiful riding of Sault Ste. Marie. I met with many constituents concerning a variety of matters and listened to area leadership about their priorities. The Minister of Finance was in the Sault to promote the Canada Child Benefit, spoke about security and retirement, and showed this government's continued support for steel. We hosted a number of consultations on a variety of subjects, including climate change. After all, Sault Ste. Marie is the alternative energy capital of North America. We welcomed 5 Syrian refugee families to Canada. I even sponsored a petition created by Suite Scott Morfitt, promoted by Olympic gold medalist Brad Jacobs, to make curling one of Canada's national sports. Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask this House to hurry hard and sign the petition to make curling a national sport. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, it's with great pleasure today that I welcome to the House of Commons Ms. Carmen Dallaire, who is today realizing the dream of a lifetime. She's 87 years old and taught for 32 years. I was one of her students in the 6th grade, and Ms. Dallaire played a role in making me the man I have become. My dear professor, thank you so much for this part of your life that you gave to me. I take this opportunity to pay homage to all teachers. Thank you for your devotion, your great patience, and your tolerance. This is neither a profession nor a job for you, but a vocation that you share. We must be grateful because you are the masters who assure the education of the new generation. Once again, thank you, Madame Dallaire, and I hope that I did not overly disappoint you.
The Honourable Member for Avalon.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to pay tribute to a great man, a community leader, a volunteer, and the first mayor of my hometown, Conception Bay South. A veteran of World War II, Gerald Greenslade passed away on September 23rd, just a few days shy of his 96th birthday. As a former mayor of Conception Bay South, I have seen firsthand the impact that Gerald's spirit, passion, and dedication has had on our community. Without him, our bright town, with its bright future, would not be where it is today. Gerald's vision for the town of Conception Bay South, where he ran his business and raised his family, was endless. Gerald was the driving force behind the consolidation of 9 small communities becoming now the town of Conception Bay South. Gerald, your passion for our town, your spirit and dedication remains in our community and in our hearts. Rest in peace.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont, La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, I want to salute the 40,000 people who signed my petition to increase minimum wage to $15 an hour. They're sending a clear message to this government. In 2016, it's despicable that people work full-time and still live in poverty. You have to ask yourself, how is it possible? And the answer is simple. The minimum wage is too low. An employee in an ununionized call center in Montreal works barely to minimum wage and earns barely $21,000 a year. That's clearly not enough to cover basic dispenses, and they're obliged to turn to food banks. We should be ashamed as a society. Regardless of our age, education, or the kind of work we do, everyone deserves to earn enough to live decently. It is our duty as members to act to tangibly help these people in our ridings. We should establish a minimum federal wage of $15 an hour. The federal government will then join the fight against poverty and inequality.
Cobell.
The Honourable Member for Nickerbelt.
Today to recognize Miss Lily Fielding for her donation of 300 acres of land to create Kiwi Outdoor Park, un parc extérieur de toute beauté.
An outdoor park that is absolutely beautiful, situated on the outskirts of Nickelbelt. Ms. Fielding donated this in honor of her parents, John and Susan Kiwi.
The City of Greater Sudbury to purchase land to demolish Long Lake Public School and create a beautiful, open, vibrant park that it is today. It's an incredible sight of nature today. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, I invite all members to join me to recognize Ms. Fielding's significant contribution and community engagement.
In celebration of her 100th birthday, August 19th. So let us stand and wish her belated happy birthday, Miss Fielding. Merci.
The honourable member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am pleased today to rise to congratulate constituents of mine, Dan Webster and his son Sam, on the success of the first ever Tour of the Peace. The 144-kilometer bike ride for Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation allowed riders to travel throughout what it is, and I must say, Mr. Speaker, the most beautiful region in all of Canada, the BC Peace region. The idea for the race came to Dan after 13-year-old Sam was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes last year, a disease that affects over 300,000 Canadians and has no cure. Dan and Sam, as well as almost 20 other participants, along with my constituency assistant, Heather McCracken, raised over $15,000 for diabetes research, and plans have already begun for next year's big ride. Congratulations once again to Dan, Sam, and all who participated in the inaugural Tour of the Peace. I look forward to the second Tour of the Peace next year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Laval-Les-Îles. Mr. Speaker, I would like to emphasize all of the work made by women, extraordinary mothers, who through their devotion, endless devotion, have made progress in every sector of activity. Their economic, social, and family values have provided balance and serenity in their involvement in all areas of Canadian life. Thanks to these women, today, I salute all of these women whose names we don't know, who are working in the shadows without any glory, but who are the pillars of our families and, by extension, the profile of the image of the quality of the Canadian population. Well, ladies, thank you, thank you, thank you.
The honourable member for Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, my riding of Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge has a great number of incredible people. However, today I would like to present an outstanding man to you.
7-year-old who was recently diagnosed with metastatic gastric cancer, yet this diagnosis is not slowing him down. He is still currently working and has maintained a sense of humor despite his battle with stage 4 stomach cancer. His family has started a fundraiser for a new, very expensive immunotherapy treatment that his doctors feel may help him. They are more than halfway through their goal of $100,000, showing what can happen when a community rallies around one of their own. A pillar of strength for his family and friends, Taylor Hart is a model for anyone facing great struggles in their life. Taylor is facing this fight head-on, Mr. Speaker, and is doing so with tenacity, grace, and his family is there right with him. Mr. Speaker, I ask that everyone in this House join me in wishing him well in his fight. Stay strong, Taylor.
Member for Bow River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to talk about a founding industry in my riding, Bow River, but also to much of Western Canada, the beef sector, which is today very integrated and has been part of Southern Alberta for almost 150 years. It is not the industry of our parents. It is now an integrated industry from ranches, auction markets, feedlots, packing plants to the store shelf. It is a very value-added industry introducing the best quality beef in the world. Due to the integrated nature of this industry, if one crucial part of the supply chain is knocked out, like major feedlots, it is a major ripple effect to the whole industry. The inelasticity of fuel costs in many ag sectors, especially feedlots, cattle transportation, will be detrimental to the survival of the Canadian added value industry. I hope the Minister of Agriculture takes this issue very seriously, as Canada may lose a world-class value-added industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Fundy Royal.
Mr. Speaker, as we reflect this month on women in history, I'm reminded of the impact of war brides in our communities. Thousands came from Britain, including my great-grandmother and my husband's grandmother. Others came from Netherlands, Belgium, France, Italy, and Germany. Whether they crossed the U-boat-infested waters of the North Atlantic in troop ships or arrived after the war with children in tow, we can only imagine their challenges as they dispersed across our great country to begin their new lives. Ruby Gray, who celebrates her 95th birthday tomorrow, is another one of these brave women. She came to Canada to spend her life with her beloved Albert, but over time she touched so many more lives. Because of her, Sussex now has a Relay for Life. Because of her, the Little Jackie Fund helps children with orthodontic challenges. And because of her, I saw the power of women in politics when she served as deputy mayor of our town. Ruby, thank you for your significant contribution to the history of Canada. We all wish you a happy 95th birthday.
Wow. The honourable member for Charleswood St. James, Assiniboia Headingley.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to bring attention to the complex and devastating issue of eating disorders in Canada. Unfortunately, not many are aware of the dark reality of eating disorders in this country. Therefore, as part of Mental Illness Awareness Week, I would like to shed light on these difficult illnesses. They affect an estimated 600,000 to 900,000 Canadians at any given time and impact Canadian men and women of all ages and ethnicities. Research has shown that eating disorders have the highest mortality rate of all mental illnesses. During my career as an emergency physician, I can attest to the struggles and serious negative health implications that people with eating disorders are faced with. It is time for all Canadians to look outside the stigma of mental illness and recognize eating disorders as a serious health issue. By acknowledging this mental illness, we are in turn helping the thousands of Canadians struggling to overcome this issue.
Member for Lethbridge.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased today to have the opportunity to be shadowed by a very strong, bright young woman. She is here taking my seat for the day under the initiative called Girls Belong Here. In too many countries around the globe, women and girls are relegated to second-class citizens. This is why Canada, under the direction of the leader of the official opposition, led the charge at the United Nations to declare October 11th the International Day of the Girl. By focusing on the barriers that are unique to women and girls, from forced marriage to sexual violence to systemic barriers to education and economic development, we can build a more inclusive and equitable world. When women's rights are realized, families benefit, communities are strengthened, and our nation will prosper. On October 11th, let us all celebrate the beautiful contribution of our women and girls to building a stronger world.
The honourable member for New Brunswick Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, in New Brunswick Southwest, we need to do a better job sharing our success stories, especially in the area of marine science. My riding, New Brunswick Southwest, has a rich history of fishing, aquaculture, and innovation. It is a cluster of the marine science sector. Canada's oldest marine biological station is also in New Brunswick Southwest. Our billion-dollar aquaculture industry is a leader in innovation. Since the Huntsman Marine Science Centre opened in 1969, over 1 million marine biology students completed their field courses here. With nearly half of the world's population living in coastal areas, the marine research displayed in New Brunswick Southwest is transferred globally and positions us as world leaders. We are thankful for the government's investment in smaller science projects. We deliver big results. Thank you.
The honourable member for Port Moody Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, next week I'll be announcing support for my private member's bill to save wild salmon. This bill protects wild salmon and allows the aquaculture industry to grow by moving harmful open net pens to safe closed containment. I encourage you to join my campaign to save wild salmon by going to findonnelly.ca. In fact, thousands already have. The list of supporters is as diverse as Canada itself. It includes noted environmentalists like David Suzuki and Alex Morton, First Nation chiefs like leaders like Grand Chief Stuart Phillip and Chief Bob Chamberlain. I have endorsements from industry associations like the Sport Fishing Institute of BC and trade unions like QPBC and UFCW Local 1518. I even have support from Stanley Cup champion Willie Mitchell. And that's not all, Mr. Speaker. Tune in next week for an important announcement from a Canadian icon and actor who knows that together we can ensure a healthy future for wild salmon and the people who depend on him. Stay tuned.
The honourable member for Edmonton Riverbend.
Mr. Speaker, as the jobs crisis in Alberta gets worse, families continue to wait for the Liberal government to present solutions. We in Alberta know that a strong Alberta, we have a strong Canada. But yet, we have 4 Liberal MPs from Alberta who have turned a blind eye to their constituents and to the many families hurting our province. We know people are reaching out to them because they're coming to our office, Mr. Speaker. For this reason, Mr. Speaker, yesterday, the Conservative Caucus of Alberta officially launched the Alberta Jobs Task Force. We will be listening to everyday Albertans, employers, small businesses, workers, and others who have valuable insight and ideas to share. The task force will collect this information and produce a report containing tangible policy solutions. As we continue to see those same 4 Alberta Liberals applaud the Prime Minister for job-killing initiatives like the carbon tax, which will further cripple Alberta's economy, we'll be working hard on real solutions to ensure Alberta remains the economic engine of Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Thunder Bay, Rainy River.
Mr. Speaker, today here on Parliament Hill and across the country, vigils are being held to honour the memory of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. We join their families and loved ones in our shared commitment to end this ongoing national tragedy. We must provide justice for the victims and healing for the families. The launch of the National Inquiry on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls is an important step towards that goal. But there is still much more work to be done, and we need all Canadians to actively participate in the process. I wish to thank those who attended the Sisters in Spirit vigils across the country. Thank you for making your voices heard, and thank you for coming together to take a united stand on ending violence against our nation's women. I encourage all Canadians to join us in the journey towards reconciliation, honoring the memory of our Sisters in Spirit, and in thanking the families and loved ones for their courage. Merci, miigwech.
Thank you.
Oral questions, questions orales. Honorable député de Lac.
The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, yesterday we saw provincial Minister of the Environment leave the conference because they were disappointed in the Prime Minister's decision. And they were shocked to see that before the end of the discussions, a carbon tax was being imposed. And this is another example of interference in areas of provincial jurisdiction. Decisions are being made in their place. Will the Prime Minister stop getting involved and interfering in areas under provincial jurisdiction and allow those that are the best placed to make those decisions to do so, the provinces? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we've always said that we understand the importance of having the provinces take action to reduce emissions and that the federal government is a partner. That is exactly what we're doing. We're working with them to establish systems that will create economic growth, create jobs while protecting the environment at the same time. Canadians, people across the country expect leadership from all levels of government, and that is exactly what we showed yesterday. The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker,
people don't expect more money to be taken out of their pockets to pay for
and more money taken out of Canadian pockets. This is just another great example why this Prime Minister interfering with provinces' business. A carbon tax is a bad idea, and Canadian taxpayers will be the ones paying the tab. We said it yesterday and we say it again. Get out of the way, let the provinces do their job. Mr. Speaker, will this Prime Minister leave provincial politics aside and let the provinces make their own decision in their own jurisdiction?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again we see why for 10 years the previous government was unable to work with the provinces, unable to build a protected environment, unable to create the kinds of jobs that were necessary. This is the responsibility of all levels of government, and indeed environment is a shared jurisdiction, so we can actually build a set of solutions that will create jobs for the middle class, innovate and prepare for the future while protecting our environment for years to come. This is right for the economy, it's right for the environment, and it's about time Canada had leadership on this file.
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the premiers, if they had asked for a meeting, I would understand, but they've created more problems with the provinces in 1 year than we did over a 10-year period. And it's unfortunate that the tax burden will continue to increase. It's all fine and well to meet with the premiers, but if no decisions are made with them, that's showing a lack of respect. Will the Prime Minister stop dipping into Canadians' wallets and pockets and abandon their idea of a carbon tax? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Once again, Mr. Speaker, members of the Conservative Party are showing that they don't understand that a strong economy requires a strong investment in the environment. Canadians expect their government to build a strong economy with new jobs, with economic growth shared by all, while at the same time protecting the environment. This is the kind of leadership, after 10 years with no leadership, that we have shown by working together with the provinces.
Abbotsford. Yesterday, as Canadian environment ministers met in good faith in Montreal, the Prime Minister pulled the rug out from under them by announcing a new, massive billion-dollar carbon tax grab on Canadians. Angry ministers walked out of the meeting, saying they had been betrayed and railroaded. Premier Brad Walsh said the disrespect by the Prime Minister was stunning. Why is this Prime Minister betraying Canadians by ramming a carbon tax grab down their throats?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
For 10 years, Mr. Speaker, Canadians struggled because they had a government that not only did not protect the environment, but wasn't creating the kind of growth for the economy, the kind of clean jobs that Canadians know the future depends on. That is why the leadership that we have showed, demonstrating that we understand that pricing carbon pollution right across the country is essential to create a stronger economic future and a stronger environment for generations to come. That is the leadership we've shown that was sorely lacking from the other side of the aisle.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford.
Yesterday's betrayal of environment ministers generated a firestorm of anger. Yukon's Curry Dixon said the air was sucked out of the room. Saskatchewan's Scott Moe said the tax grab was a betrayal and not a good day for federal-provincial relations. Newfoundland said they were railroaded. And Nova Scotia said the Prime Minister let the province down. Can the Prime Minister explain to Canadian families exactly how many more thousands of dollars they will pay in higher heating, electricity, and gasoline bills?
Honourable Prime Minister.
After 10 years, Mr. Speaker, Canadians grew tired of a government that not only couldn't protect the environment, but wasn't creating the kind of economic growth that Canadians needed. That's why we are pleased to be working with the provinces to help them set up a system on pricing carbon pollution that will ensure that their provinces flourish, that we create good jobs, and that we protect the environment for generations to come.
Député d'Outremont.
Honourable Member for Outremont.
Mr. Speaker, last year's Liberal platform promised that a Liberal government would establish new national emissions reduction targets, page 40. Well, not even 12 months since the election and the Prime Minister broke that promise by endorsing Stephen Harper's old and woefully inadequate climate change targets. Ooh. And yesterday, the Prime Minister unilaterally announced a plan that won't even achieve Stephen Harper's targets. Ooh. Here's a simple question for the Prime Minister. Does he deny anything that I just said?
The Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday we worked across the country to bring in a level of pricing on carbon pollution that is going to make a huge difference to grow the economy and to create jobs. The fact is, Canadians know we need to build a strong economy and protect the environment together. Yesterday, we showed the leadership that had been sorely lacking in doing just that, in creating both jobs and protecting the environment.
The Honourable Member for Outremont.
So the answer was no. Les libéraux.
The Liberals signed the Kyoto Protocol with no plan whatsoever to respect it. The Prime Minister admitted that last week. In 2008, Stephen Harper announced a price on carbon, $65 a tonne, for 2018. Does that bring back any memories, Mr. Speaker? This is Liberal Conservative deception. What will the Prime Minister tell the next generation when this betrayal has made climate change worse and jeopardized their future on this planet? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Once again, Mr. Speaker, we see that some people on the other side of this House who don't think we're taking enough or going far enough. Others think that we're going too far. The reality is that Canadians expect us to protect the environment and for us to build an economy that will flourish for all at the same time. And that is exactly what we set up, what we put forth with this plan to create pricing on carbon. The Honourable Member for Outremont, but he isn't doing either.
Natural Resources asking him to look into nuclear safety concerns. He not only refused, but he passed the buck to the CNSC president, who actually made jokes about these serious safety issues. Well, today, the Environment Commissioner released a report that highlights critical problems with nuclear safety in Canada. Can the Prime Minister explain his minister's inaction on this file, and can he explain his support for a CNSC president who thinks this is all a laughing matter?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that this government takes very seriously the question of nuclear safety and security. That's why we welcome the report from the Commissioner, and we will continue to work to ensure that Canada has the highest standards on nuclear safety and security. That's what Canadians expect.
The Honourable Member for Outremont.
It is, why has he done nothing since this summer, Mr. Speaker? La plupart des Canadiens.
Most Canadians are opposed to our country selling arms to countries that violate human rights. Will the Prime Minister support our motion to improve oversight for the sale of arms by Canada?
Canadians don't want our country selling arms to human rights abusers. Why is this Prime Minister opposing more oversight for the sale of arms internationally? Why won't the Prime Minister just say yes?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, like we promised during the campaign and leading up to it, we are saying yes to signing on to the Arms Trade Treaty. It is important that Canada, after being a laggard for too long on this issue, shows what Canadians and the world expects of it in terms of leadership. We've also made firm commitments to increase the openness and transparency around arms sales around the world from Canada. This is what Canadians expect. This is what we will deliver.
Member for Cypress Hills Grasslands.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have declared all-out war on struggling rural families.
That's right.
Carbon tax will punish rural areas and farm families. This new tax will drive up the price of fuel. It will drive up the price of fertilizer. It will drive up the price of transportation for agriculture. Why are the Liberals so determined to target rural people and agriculture with their climate taxation fixation?
Minister of Environment.
Canadian farmers are responsible stewards of the land, and our government have stand and will continue to stand with them. We have constantly stood up for Canadian farm families and which have achieved success. We will continue to work with farmers and ranchers to be sure they remain competitive, and we will continue to improve the environmental gains that have already been made, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Cypress Hills Grasslands.
Well, Mr. Speaker, agriculture producers are already leaders in environmental stewardship. We know that. The machinery they buy already costs tens of thousands of dollars more because of changing emission standards. A carbon tax only adds more devastating costs to their families. Why are the Liberals punishing agriculture when farmers have already been addressing these emissions issues for years?
The Honourable Minister of Environment.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud of the leadership of our government yesterday to take real concrete action to tackle climate change, to grow our economy. And it's interesting, you should recall it was the Conservatives in their 2008 platform and speech from the throne who committed to implement a price on carbon pollution through a cap and trade system. The Environment Minister at the time said carbon trading and the establishment of a market price on carbon are key parts of our Turning the Corner plan. After a decade of failure by the Harper government meeting their commitments to the Canadians, I guess the only Conservative plan now is to cap all the things they've said and trade it for no plan at all.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, it's unfortunate to see that this government is taking the easy route by imposing more taxes on Canadians to make up for their lack of courage. Our party took up its responsibilities and reduced Canada's emissions by more than 15%. And we did that without passing the tab on to Canadians, and that is a fact. I'd ask the Prime Minister to review his remarks. Why are they choosing the easiest route, and why are they dipping into the pockets of Canadians? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very happy to see the leadership that we are taking with the provinces and territories to tackle climate change and grow our economy. Premier Couillard was pleased with Ottawa's decision yesterday. He said, and I quote, "This announcement recognizes the autonomy of the provinces and flexibility in the Federation so that each can go ahead." The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, the Liberal government announced in this House that it would be taxing Canadians even more by using the Paris Agreement to force the territories and provinces to put in place a carbon tax. The Prime Minister said he didn't need Parliament to ratify it. He said that he would be imposing that on the provinces and the territories. Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister respect Parliament, areas of provincial and territorial jurisdiction, and stop dipping into Canadians' pockets? The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy to see Canada take leadership.
Who believe in the markets don't understand that this is a market-based system that's going to help us grow our economy and move in advance. But maybe they wanted to listen to job creators. Suncor said in a statement after our announcement, "We support a broad-based price on carbon as an important tool to reduce greenhouse gas emissions." Shell Canada President, "Balancing Canadian economic development while protecting the environment will be enabled by a reasonable price on carbon." Canadian Wind Energy Association, a carbon price...
Order. Order. I'm having a much easier time hearing the questions than I am the answers, and I ask members to come to order. The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, it's estimated that the Liberal carbon tax will take thousands of dollars every year out of the pockets of Canadian families. But even supporters of the carbon tax say that the tax would have to be astronomically higher to have any impact on global emissions. Why won't the Liberals admit that their carbon tax has nothing to do with environmental stewardship and everything to do with filling government coffers for their reckless spending?
The Honourable Minister of Environment.
Let me be 100% clear, because unfortunately the party opposite doesn't understand. We understand that we need to put a price on emissions. We have two ways to do this. You can do it through a direct price, or you can do it through a cap and trade system. We have 80% of Canadians that already live in a jurisdiction where there's a price on carbon. It's up to provinces to decide which way they want to do it and what they would like to do with the revenues. They can give it back as a tax cut to Canadians, to consumers in their province, to businesses. But this is the way forward. The government is taking leadership because that's what Canadians expect.
Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, this new carbon tax will disproportionately hurt people living in rural and northern communities in Canada. This new tax will disproportionately hurt low-income Canadians, especially those living on fixed incomes like seniors. Why can't the Prime Minister recognize that punishing the most vulnerable Canadians with higher gasoline, electricity and heating bills is not fair and won't actually achieve anything except more hardship?
The Honourable Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, I find it very surprising that the party opposite that suggested that they put a price on carbon in 2008 is now backtracking on this. We understand this is the way that we're going to grow our economy, they're going to create good jobs for the future, and we're positioning ourselves well, and we need to show leadership, and that is exactly what we are doing.
For Vancouver, Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, it looks like the new era of federal-provincial relations lasted about 10 months. After the Liberals announced that they would continue Stephen Harper's cuts to health care, the Premiers wrote a letter to the Prime Minister asking for a special meeting on a new health accord. His response? Not interested. And yesterday, the Prime Minister's unilateral approach saw provincial ministers walk out of their meeting. Will the Prime Minister agree to the province's latest request? Will he hold off on the cuts to the healthcare transfers for 1 year? It's a reasonable request.
Yes. Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, this government is demonstrating an approach to health care that has not been seen in this country in a decade. We are collaborating with the provinces and territories. I will be meeting with the health ministers from across the country 2 weeks from today. We will be specifically investing in areas where Canadians know we need change. Canadians need better access to home care, including palliative care. Canadians need better access to mental health care. We will talk to provinces and territories. We will deliver on those promises.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, following more than 3 months of radio silence, the provincial premiers learned that they would finally get a meeting with the Prime Minister to discuss long-term funding for health in December. That's really not what they would have hoped for. If the Prime Minister isn't prepared to meet with them before that, can he at least commit to respecting their request to maintain funding at 6% for the next year? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government is doing something that we have not seen in this country in a decade. We are collaborating with the provinces from across the country. I will have an excellent meetings with my provincial and territorial counterparts 2 weeks from today, and we'll be discussing Canadians' needs. We'll be looking at how we can improve the healthcare system everywhere.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, in producing policy, there's always the devil in the details. One of the details is my Aunt Colleen, who lives in Cape Breton. She is a widow on a fixed income. And the things that she worries about are the cost of her power, how much it costs to fill her tank, and ultimately how much her food costs. So when she heard about yesterday's announcement on everything going up, her natural concern to me was, well, what's going to happen? Because this is what it means. It's about her dignity. It's about her independence. It's about her quality of life. What does the minister have to say to give Colleen comfort on these things which are very, very real?
Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the colleague opposite's question. What I would say is that we are putting a price on carbon because this is a way to grow our economy in a cleaner way, position ourselves well to have the solutions both to produce cleaner natural resources, renewable power, which will create good jobs, which will create a positive future. But maybe I should just point to the Conservative Mark Cameron, the former policy advisor of the Prime Minister, who says federal carbon pricing plan looks like a good start. As most free market economists realize, it's the most effective way to reduce emissions.
Member for Milton.
So, Mr. Speaker, I think they're not getting the point that actual seniors are going to be in a lot of pain. A fixed income actually means a fixed income, and that's all you get. And if taxes come into it, that means there's less for you to spend on what you eat, on what you put in your gas tank, and how, whether or not you put on a sweater in the winter instead of increasing that thermostat a little bit. Now, we learned that lesson here in Ontario, and Kathleen Wynne has taken a massive backward step because she realizes that actually cranking the rates on hydro does not work well for politics. So is the minister cognizant of the fact that at some point people are going to squeal?
Good question. Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we are proud of what we've done to help seniors in this country. In our budget, we actually took a look at the most vulnerable seniors, and we raised the guaranteed income supplement for them by about $947 a year. Importantly, we reversed the decision taken by the opposite member's party by moving the old age security back to age 65. And more importantly, Mr. Speaker, we've helped seniors in the future by working together with the provinces to enhance the Canada Pension Plan, which we are so proud to say BC came on board today, say that 9 provinces are in support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Most members in all parties are able to hear things I don't like without reacting and able to wait their turn to speak. So I ask those who haven't been doing it to do so. The honourable member for Foothills. Here, John.
Mr. Speaker, employment insurance claims in Alberta are up 90%. More than 200 Albertans are out of work. My home province is facing a jobs crisis. Even Royal Bank CEO David McKay understands this dire situation, saying Canada will not succeed if Alberta's energy sector does not succeed. The Liberals' response to this crisis, imposing a punitive, job-killing carbon tax. Mr. Speaker, why is this Liberal government so determined to destroy Alberta's economy with National Energy Program 2.0, and why are Alberta's 4 Liberal MPs willing to let this happen?
Honourable Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're very concerned with jobs across Canada. In the particular situation in Alberta, we're there to help, to support growing the economy, both in the short term and in the long term, with sound environmental, sustainable, as well as sound social policies, of which EI is an important component. We've signalled very important changes to the EI system, the quality of services, the care and the compassion we feel for all workers, including them in Alberta.
Honourable member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, Albertans appreciate the compassion, but they want jobs. They don't want EI. The Liberal government is imposing a carbon tax that is going to plow Alberta's agriculture sector into the ground. Alberta's farmers and ranchers, they want to know why this government is attacking their livelihood. One worried farmer in my riding said this carbon tax will drive the cost of his fuel alone from $125,000 a year to $150,000 a year, putting his operation in jeopardy. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the Liberals' response will be to use public transit or get an electric car. So the farmers and ranchers in my riding, they have one question. How many head of cattle can I fit on a bus?
Honourable Minister of Employment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a Westerner, it gives me an opportunity to just indicate how concerned we are about the workers and the businesses in Alberta and across Canada, and in fact that we've stepped up, Mr. Speaker. Not only have we increased EI benefits for workers, we've increased supports for small business through... We've helped small business through the Work Share program by doubling it. We've added $16 million more for skills and training. We've doubled the number of youth getting skills training, and we've added 245 young people to help Fort Mac. And
unless it gets quieter, there'll be one less question from this side. The honourable member from Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Today, Canadians across the country are standing with Sisters in Spirit to honour murdered and missing Indigenous women. Families of victims are calling out this government for failing to deliver on its promise for action. They're calling this place the House of Broken Promises. Families can't wait until the end of the inquiry before they see real change. What action will this government take right now to ensure we have no more stolen sisters?
The Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
I thank the member for the question, and I thank all the members of this House that stood with the families of Sisters in Spirit on the Hill today. This is a really important question as we go forward. We can't wait for the result of the Commission. We need to get going now on housing and shelters and safe transportation, but also racism and sexism in policing, and also the total overhaul of the child welfare system, as we learned from that BC report today, which is devastating.
The honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, the Justice Minister was regional chief of the FN when they took the government to court to end systemic discrimination against First Nation children. But now as Justice Minister, her government has ignored 2 compliance orders to address the crisis of children at risk. She has a responsibility to ensure this government meets its legal obligations. And pretending that an underfunded plan written in the final dying days of the Harper government was somehow a response to the ruling in January. It's not acceptable. We're talking about children here. Will the minister respect the tribunal, and what steps will she take to restore credibility to this House of broken promises?
Hear, hear. Minister of Indigenous Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, the assertion from the minister across the way is absolutely false. The member. Yeah, one day, Charlie. Yeah.
Okay, the minister knows we don't refer to members by their first names. The Honourable Minister of Indigenous Affairs.
Charlie Brown. This government promised a new relationship with Indigenous people, a new way of doing things. We prepared for and then accepted the ruling of the tribunal and are committed to ending this discrimination. We've made immediate investments in child and family services on reserve, and we are working with First Nations communities, the key
And I would, once I have the minister's attention, I'd ask her to not refer to other members as cartoon characters either. The honourable member for Northwest Territories. Is that okay, Jerry?
So I was happy to hear that Budget 2016 proposed $64.5 million over 5 years to expand Nutrition North. Can the Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs update the House on the actions our government took this summer to help Northerners access fresh, healthy foods? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well put. Member for Red Deer, Lacombe. Minister of Indigenous Affairs.
Member for his question, but also for his important work on this file. Northerners need to have a direct voice in reforming this program, and we've spent the summer listening. This week, the Parliamentary Secretary is continuing listening to Northerners as she continues her work in Eastern Canada. We're committed to listen and design a program with Northerners that will work for them, for affordable, healthy food, and we've heard already very clearly that we need support for harvesters and real access to country food.
Member for Red Deer, Lacombe.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals have a love affair with padding the pockets of their friends with taxpayers' money. Documents released last week revealed the Liberals signed off on $200,000 for their so-called deliverology wizard from the UK. This self-proclaimed guru sold Ontario a bunch of buzzwords that didn't work when he was brought in to deliver for the Liberals in Queen's Park. So, why are these Liberals paying $200,000 for the same person to deliver the same useless bill of goods?
The Honourable Minister, Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course, we will deliver on our commitments, and that is what Canadians expect. We have already, for example, lowered taxes on the middle class. We have implemented the Canada Child Benefit, which has given money to families with children that need it the most. We have signed a historic agreement with the principals to strengthen the Canada Pension Plan. The list of the work that we are doing continues. We will continue to work hard for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Red Deer, Lacombe.
So, Mr. Speaker, we learned that the Prime Minister's BFF, Jerry Butts, brought in his good buddy from the UK to consult the government on deliverology. The last time this individual consulted a Canadian government, Ontario became a have-not province and the most indebted sub-sovereign government in the world. Mr. Speaker, just who exactly is running this country? Is it Jerry? Is it Katie? Or is it the pinch-hitting guru from the UK? Can someone over there justify this atrocious waste of taxpayers' money?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this government was elected on a commitment to work hard for Canadians. This government was elected on a commitment to help grow the economy, to create jobs, create the growth that Canadians need. This government is committed to delivering on our commitments. We will continue to do the hard work we are doing, and the actions have already started. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, we now know that the Prime Minister is using public money, $200,000, to pay a British expert who's apparently helping him implement his agenda. But based on what we're seeing, Mr. Speaker, the expert's apparently rather helping them to find new ways to raise taxes for Canadian families, and especially to waste taxpayers' money on indefensible spending. Can the Prime Minister explain very specifically how this $200,000 has truly helped Canadian families? The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And yes, indeed, we will keep our promises, and that is what Canadians expect from us. For example, we have already reduced taxes on the middle class, and we have helped 9 million families. We put in place the Canada Child Benefit, which is tax-free and which is more generous for 9 out of 10 Canadian families. We have concluded an agreement in principle to improve the CPP, and the list goes on. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, once again, this Prime Minister is focused on his image instead of taking care of jobs and the economy. Canadians deserve better, and they want a Prime Minister who works for them, as did the Right Honourable Stephen Harper. Mr. Speaker, as my mother always said, a pretty face won't put food on the table. Instead of dropping $200,000 on pseudo-experts, could the Prime Minister finally do some work to benefit all Canadians? Order. The Honourable Government House Leader. Order. As I've said, Mr. Speaker, we have made promises to Canadians, and we will keep our promises. We will continue to work very hard for all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Windsor-Tecumseh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to start out with a salute to everyone in Windsor and Tecumseh who is dealing with the aftermath of flood damage. The Prime Minister stated that he was glad to see relief in the weather forecast for flood victims, but what about financial relief? The Conservatives drastically cut federal emergency funding in 2015, and will the Prime Minister restore emergency relief and come to the aid of these residents?
Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the previous government did in fact cut back on emergency support programs. We are in the process of correcting those errors. There is in place for dealing with current emergencies a cost-sharing formula. The municipality makes the request to the province makes the request to the federal government, and rest assured the Government of Canada stands ready to help.
Honourable Member for North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, the Phoenix pay system is causing havoc in my riding of North Island Powell River. In one horrible case, a constituent of mine was asked to prove that she was in financial default so that her case would be deemed a priority. Let me make this clear for the government. If you're not getting paid, it's a priority. We know that the minister says she didn't read the report that highlighted several problems with Phoenix. Will she now act and commit to ending this sluggish process and help workers get paid?
Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for her question. It is totally unacceptable for any person not to get paid for work performed. We agree totally with that. That is why we have taken so many measures to fix the Phoenix pay system. We have hired additional people to make sure that those who have been in the backlog get paid. We are making sure that people who have gone without pay get paid. We are working very hard to make sure that every measure possible is being taken to correct this system, and it will get fixed.
The member for Niagara Falls.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals are always in the business of telling us that there are problems with Canadian institutions, so maybe they could tell us what the problem is with having representation from Atlantic Canada on the Supreme Court. Because if this has been an issue for the Liberals for the last 141 years, maybe they could tell us as well where in their election platform was it that they said they were not going to guarantee representation for Atlantic Canada on the Supreme Court.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member from Niagara Falls for his interest in Atlantic Canada. Mr. Speaker, what we committed to during the election was to fix a broken Supreme Court of Canada nomination process that was in effect under the previous government. And that process was opaque, it was secretive, it was out of date, it was in need of an overhaul. And that's why we put in place a process that is transparent, that is accountable, and that is open, that involves parliamentarians, and that doesn't involve attacks by the Prime Minister on the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada. That's real change.
For Niagara Falls.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to be born in Niagara Falls, but I'm proud to have 150 years of my family from Cape Breton Island. I'll take no lessons from that member right there. Mr. Speaker, if the Liberals don't want to do the right thing because the Conservatives are telling them what to do, why don't they listen to 4 Liberal senators from Nova Scotia? They want the Liberals to do the right thing, or is that the reason probably they got kicked out of the Liberal caucus?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I can do one better. I'm married to Cape Bretoner. Mr. Speaker, the process that was in place under the previous government was opaque, outdated, and in need of an overhaul. The 4 senators absolutely deserve credit for their advocacy on this issue. Those 4 senators have been advocates for Nova Scotia even before the last election, Mr. Speaker. And I'm pleased to say that the advisory board that has been tasked with coming up with jurists of the highest caliber have included names from Atlantic Canada on that list. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, since the Prime Minister unveiled his Supreme Court appointment process to shut out Atlantic Canada, the silence from the 32 Liberal MPs from Atlantic Canada has been deafening. And now 4 senators from Atlantic Canada are calling on the Prime Minister to respect Atlantic representation. So given that these senators are finally speaking up, will the Prime Minister get around to doing the right thing and appoint an Atlantic Canadian?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague from Edmonton, St. Albert, for that question. Mr. Speaker, as I've indicated, we inherited a process that was badly broken, that was secretive, that didn't involve parliamentarians. We've reformed that process. It is now open, transparent, and accountable. That process has resulted in a list going forward to the Prime Minister of highly qualified, functionally bilingual jurists that includes candidates from Atlantic Canada, and they are perfectly capable. We are perfectly capable of participating in a national competition. We've been doing it for more than 141 years.
Honourable member for Saint-Léonard, Saint-Michel. Mr. Speaker, young people are essential to the future of research in Canada. We know that young researchers play a fundamental role in the production of knowledge, in discovery and innovation, which allows us to build a middle class that is strong and healthy. Can the Minister of Science please tell us how this government is investing in training and retention for young researchers? Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my colleague from Saint-Léonard Saint-Michel for that question. Young researchers are essential to the future of research in Canada.
$34 million to support more than 200 Vanier Canada graduate scholarships and Banting postdoctoral fellowships. These prestigious awards help Canadian universities attract and retain the best talent from around the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Lethbridge.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister needs to take seriously the plight that's taking place with Yazidi girls. We are calling upon him to stop turning a blind eye to the rape culture of ISIS and other Islamic fundamentalists around the globe. Right now, Yazidi women and girls are being sold into sexual slavery, and the best that the Liberals can do for us is simply send advisors. My question is, Mr. Speaker, for the Prime Minister. I would like to know when he plans on taking action on behalf of those that are being faced with this genocide in Iraq and Syria. When will the Prime Minister take real action instead of lip service?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, with respect to real action on refugees in general, we on this side of the House have taken 3 to 4 times the action that they did a year ago. And on the specific subject of Yazidis, we recognize the exceptionally serious nature of this issue, also the difficulties. And so my department is sending an expedition, a group over to investigate the situation in Iraq. They will be going themselves to gather facts and determine possible courses of action.
The honourable member for Jonquière. Yesterday, instead of unveiling a Plan B for the softwood lumber sector, the minister blamed the previous government for their inability to get a new agreement with the United States. With 8 days to go until the deadline, industry wants to see the government's backup plan. Because according to the most recent rumors, the U.S. wants to reduce Canada's market share from 34% to 20%. 20%, Mr. Speaker, for Canadian softwood. If there's no agreement, will the government provide support for the softwood lumber industry, for example, with an emergency loan guarantee program? The Honourable Minister of International Trade. The agreement expired under the previous government. For months, we have been working intensively to negotiate a new agreement. For months, there has been unprecedented cooperation with producers, with workers, with the provinces and territories, and we will continue to collaborate closely with them. I met with the American Representative Mike Froman 3 weeks ago in Washington, and I will be meeting him again tomorrow in Toronto. We are looking for a good agreement for Canada's workers, not just any agreement.
Phil North Burlington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Public safety officers put themselves in harm's way to protect our communities, and they and their families deserve our support. That's why my colleagues and I on the Public Safety Committee have been studying the issue of operational stress injuries and post-traumatic stress in public safety officers and first responders and tabled our report this morning. This issue was also an important part of our platform. Can the Public Safety Minister please tell us what the government is doing to support our public safety officers?
Minister.
Speaker, at roundtable meetings this year in Regina, Ottawa, and Halifax, we heard directly from public safety officers that they need better prevention of operational stress injuries, more research and awareness, no stigmas, and better diagnosis, care, and long-term support for first responders and their families. I want to thank the member for Oakville, North Burlington, and all the members of that committee for the report. We are, in fact, moving forward with the development of a national action plan to ensure that the brave women and men that we rely upon to keep us safe every day have the support that they need when they need it.
Member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, tourism is a major economic driver in Canada, with nearly 6 million Canadians camping every summer. Many campgrounds are small, family-run, seasonal businesses. Surprise tax bills in the tens of thousands of dollars are being sent to these small businesses because the Liberals have decided that unless a campground has 5 or more full-time, year-round employees, they no longer qualify for the small business tax rate. Why are the Liberals targeting small campgrounds for their out-of-control spending?
The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, the Canada Revenue Agency is currently working with representatives from tourism, and we will continue to apply the law, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, we will soon ratify the Paris Agreement, and the government still doesn't have a plan. Imposing a tax is not a plan. This government doesn't have one. Adopting Stephen Harper's targets is not showing leadership in the fight against climate change. Will the government, well, the government doesn't have leadership. Will the government Will it and can it present a plan that will make polluters pay as they do in Quebec? And will the government recompense provinces that meet their targets like Quebec? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Mr. Speaker, I am very proud of the work that I am doing with all the provinces and territories, including with my counterpart from Quebec, David Hurtel. The Quebec Premier, Philippe Couillard, is very happy with yesterday's announcement, and I quote, "The announcement recognizes provincial jurisdiction and the flexibility of the Federation to ensure that each province can go forward as it wants." The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has reminded us that we have the responsibility of leaving a clean environment for future generations. And this morning I heard some very nice speeches from Liberal members, but now we need to move. They need to show more than words. If the Prime Minister is serious about lowering greenhouse gas emissions, if they're serious about fighting climate change, well, they need to be coherent. My question, it's always the same until I get the right answer. Will this government reject once and for all the Energy East pipeline, which would emit as many GHGs as an extra 7 million cars on the road every year? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've said before in the House, our government recognizes that in order to build the economy, we need to protect the environment. We have a strong regulatory system in this country. The National Energy Board has been tasked with processes to ensure the safety and security of Canadians. We are also consulting with Indigenous communities along the route, as well as Canadians in general, to ensure that the process itself has the confidence of Canadians. Thank you.
I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of Her Excellency Doris Leuthard, Vice President of the Swiss Federal Council, Head of the Federal Department of the Environment, Transport, Energy and Communications. I would also like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Jiwan Bahadur Shahi, Minister of Culture, Tourism and Civil Aviation of Nepal. Finally, I would also like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of a parliamentary delegation from the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, led by Ms. Helen Jones, MP. Collègues, 15h06.
It being 3:05, pursuant to an order made on Thursday, September 29, 2016, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion of Ms. Laverdière relating to the business of supply. Call in the members.
The question is the following one. Ms. Laverdière, seconded by Ms. Hardcastle, moved that A, shall I dispense? No. The House recognized that 1, Canadian arms exports have nearly doubled over the past decade and that Canada is now the second largest exporter of arms to the Middle East. 2, Canadians expect a high standard from their government when it comes to protecting human rights abroad. 3, Canadians are concerned by arms sales to countries with a record of human rights abuses, including Saudi Arabia, Libya, and Sudan. 4, there is a need for Canadians, through Parliament, to oversee current and future arms sales. B, Standing Order 104-2 be amended by adding after Clause B the following: Arms Exports Review. C, Standing Order 108 be amended by adding the following: celui du
I, Arms Export Review